50 Things You Didn't Know About Ancient Egypt. Written and illustrated by Sean O'Neill. Ancient Egypt. The words bring to mind images of pyramids, hieroglyphs, and hidden treasure. But there's more to this ancient society than just Pharaoh's tombs filled with gold. The empire we refer to as Ancient Egypt was a complex civilization that existed in the Nile River Valley between the years 3100 BCE and 30 BCE. Over 3,000 years. Egyptians, like the Greeks and Romans, worshipped many different gods. They also create elaborate stories about the creation of the universe, as well as what they believe happened after death. The ancient Egyptians had over 2,000 gods. Many were depicted as humans with animal heads, such as Anubis, with the head of a jackal, Sobek, with the head of a crocodile, and Babi, with the head of a baboon. The name Horus, who has the head of a falcon, means he who is far above. All pharaohs consider themselves to be descendants of Horus. Good old Grandpa Horus. The most revered Egyptian goddess was Hathor, a woman with cow's horns and a solar disk on her head. Egyptians had many creation stories. They believed the universe was created when the great god Atem sneezed out Shu, god of air, and spat out Tefnut, goddess of moisture. The god Sobek is believed to have created the rivers of the world with his sweat. Gross. Man, it's hot. It was believed that after death, you travelled to an underworld called Duat, which was filled with snakes, lakes of fire, and executioners. Don't miss the lakes of fire. Egyptians believed many elements of a person lived on after death, including their ba, which was their head on the body of a hawk. The Ankh was a symbol of life, or breath of life. It was believed that the holder of the Ankh had the power to grant immortality. The image of an eye seen in much Egyptian art is the Eye of Horus, which represents the power of healing. Some ancient Egyptian jewelry featured magic charms to protect against snake bites. Good luck with that. Ancient Egyptians believed humans were made from clay on a potter's wheel by the river god Khnum. Oh, this is going to take forever. Cats were considered to be holy in ancient Egypt, and many people kept them as pets. The Egyptian word for cat was meow. Egyptians often mummified their pet cats when they died. Hi kitty, what's your name? Meow. After the gods, no figure in ancient Egypt was more revered or feared than the pharaoh. These ancient kings and queens were considered gods on earth, and the glories of their reigns are memorialized in the many temples, statues, and of course, pyramids built in their names. The 3,000-year history of ancient Egypt is divided into several kingdoms, with over 30 dynasties and over 100 different pharaohs. Ha, still fits. The word pharaoh comes from the Egyptian Pharaoh, which meant great house or palace. Pharaoh Ramses II is believed to have had around 100 children, approximately 56 boys and 44 girls. Imagine that family reunion. The face on the Sphinx is believed to be that of the pharaoh Khafre, who was buried in one of the 3 pyramids of Giza. Can you make my nose a little smaller? Not all pharaohs were men. Pharaoh Hatshepsut was a woman, but she wore all the same adornments as a male king, including a fake beard. How do I look? Very, pharaohic, ma'am. Sir? While Pharaoh Hatshepsut never married, she did have a boyfriend, her architect, Senenmut. The longest reigning pharaoh in Egyptian history was Pharaoh Pepi II, who reigned for 94 years. He became Egypt's king when he was only 6 years old. Pepi II would allegedly smear slaves with honey to attract flies away from him. Stupid flies! Beats working. The Pharaoh Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut, came to the throne when he was only 9 years old, and died when he was just 18. King Tut's mummy was wrapped with over 140 amulets, as well as daggers and jewellery. Probably the most famous Egyptian queen, Cleopatra, was not even Egyptian, she was actually Greek. Ancient Egyptians paid taxes to the pharaoh, usually in the form of farm animals or grain. Pharaohs sometimes decorated the soles of their sandals with drawings of their enemies, so they could literally crush their foes with every step. There are perhaps no more familiar symbols of ancient Egypt than the towering pyramids of Giza and the mummies buried within them. The Egyptians believed that death was the beginning of a long journey, and they developed many elaborate burial rituals to prepare for the mysteries that lay ahead, including, of course, mummification. The pyramids and the many underground tombs that have been discovered by archaeologists reveal the length ancient Egyptians went to prepare for the afterlife. The Great Pyramid, when built, was an amazing 484 feet, 148 meters, tall. Nearly double the height of the Statue of Liberty. It's built out of 2,300,000 stone blocks, each weighing 2.5 tons. The base of the pyramid takes up almost as much space as 5 football fields. The Great Pyramid has vents pointing to the constellation of Orion, so the pharaoh's spirit could fly straight up to the gods. The construction of the Great Pyramid took about 23 years. I can see the top. The Great Pyramid is the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing. The process of mummification took 70 days. Scientists can tell a lot from X-raying a mummy, including what it ate in its last meal. Yeah, it was delicious. A mummy's organs were removed because it was believed that they could be used to harm them in the afterlife. The only organ left in the body was the heart. During mummification, the brain was removed using a hook inserted through the nose. Oh, it still hurts just thinking about it. A mummy was entombed with his mouth open, which allowed him to eat and drink after death. To keep the shape of Ramses II's nose from collapsing, embalmers stuffed his nostrils with peppercorns. Pharaohs' tombs contained many valuable treasures, but ancient Egyptians prepared the tombs for whatever the pharaoh might need in the afterlife. Many Egyptian tombs contained toilets, just in case. Pharaohs were often buried with one or more boats, which were meant to carry his soul through the afterlife. The pharaoh Khufu, who built the Great Pyramid, was buried with a boat 142 feet, 43 meters long, and 19 feet, 6 meters, wide. Egyptians were also concerned about how the dead pharaohs would occupy themselves, so they were sometimes buried with Egyptian board games like Senet and Mehen to give them something to do in the next life. One more game. Oh, I'm so sick of Senet. Come on, best out of 10 million. While a select few held the honoured roles of pharaoh or priest, the vast majority of ancient Egyptians were ordinary citizens. While some workers served the pharaoh, there were many important jobs in Egyptian society. Some of the details of daily life might seem even more outlandish than the myths and legends of the Egyptian gods. Egyptians created one of the earliest forms of paper, called papyrus, made from weaving reed stems. Ancient pens were made from dried reeds, and ink was ground charcoal mixed with water. Men performed most jobs in ancient Egypt, but breaking bread was one of the few jobs open to women. Ancient Egyptian bakers made pastries shaped like rings, the original donut. Women were also allowed to make perfume, pilot boats, and brew beer. Thank you, come again. Ancient Egyptians were the first humans to brew beer, which was believed to have been brought to Egypt by the god Osiris. Thank you, O mighty Osiris. Beer! Ice cold beer! Both Egyptian men and women wore makeup, including green eyeshadow, eyeliner made from lead, and red ochre lipstick. Honey, have you been using my lipstick again? Ancient Egyptians had some outlandish remedies. A recipe of donkey's hoof, dog's paw, date pits, and oil was thought to cure baldness, and a mix of juniper berries, coriander, wormwood, and honey was used for headaches. Ancient Egyptian doctors were the first to stitch wounds closed. Sometimes, at an Egyptian funeral, additional mourners were hired as a status symbol. Wealthy Egyptians wore cones of perfumed grease on their heads that released a pleasant scent as they melted in the heat. It burns! It burns! But you smell delightful, my lord. Only pyramids and temples were built of stone. Egyptians built most ordinary structures out of bricks that they made out of mud from the Nile River. Egyptians kept track of time by measuring how much water dripped from a pot with a small hole in the bottom. A water clock. Bye, hun. Be back in a few drips. Fly swatters made from giraffe tails were a popular fashion item in ancient Egypt. The mysteries of the land of the pharaohs have always intrigued the rest of the world. The influence of ancient Egypt crept into fashion, design, and literature, especially in the 19th century. After King Tut's tomb was discovered in 1922, Egyptomania took hold of Britain and America, and myths and legends about mummies' curses spread wildly. In 12th century Europe, ground mummies became a popular remedy, and many pharmacies carried mummy as a product. In Victorian England, travellers returning from Egypt would host mummy parties, where they would unwrap an Egyptian mummy for their dinner guests' enjoyment. A 19th century American paper company attempted to make paper out of old linen mummy wrappings. Lord Carnarvon, who led the expedition into King Tut's tomb, died 6 months later, leading to speculation of a mummy's curse. Some people blamed the sinking of the Titanic on a mummified Egyptian priestess the doomed ship was transporting. Oh dear, it really is the end! It's not so bad. I'll teach you how to play Senate.